Hi guys, and welcome to another Hero of the Week. This week's hero is the head of the SNP in the House of Commons, Ian Blackford. Now, he stood up in Parliament and he called Boris Johnson a liar. This was during a debate on a motion of censure of the Prime Minister. Blackford laid out the lies Boris Johnson has made in the House of Commons and ones repeated in the media. While it will do little to dent Boris Johnson's support within the Conservative Party and with voters, it is still important to call him out as a liar. Enjoy.
The truth and the Prime Minister have always been strangers, and I say that in sadness and not in any anger. And let me just take a few examples. On the 4th of March 2020, the Prime Minister said, "We have restored the nursery's bursary." Completely and factually untrue. On the 17th of June 2020, the Prime Minister said that there were 400,000 fewer families living in poverty than there were in 2010. Both the Office of National Statistics and the Children's Commissioner have confirmed that that is false. On the 7th of November 2019, the Prime Minister told Northern Ireland businesses in person that the protocol would mean no forms, no checks, no barriers of any kind. Once again, completely untrue. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is right to be careful in terms of the language that we use in this House. But when it comes to language, it is also right to be accurate and honest. And on the basis of all the evidence, I can only conclude that the Prime Minister has repeatedly broken the sixth principle of public life. I can only conclude that the Prime Minister has demonstrated himself to be a liar.
Well said. Now, Ian Blackford, of course, is not the first to point this out, and it's good that it is being pointed out. Boris Johnson is a liar, yes. Boris Johnson knows, and he has known for a long time, that he can convince people, and Brexit is, of course, a good example of this. He can convince people to vote against their own interests if he lies about it. And Northern Ireland was a very good example here. Boris Johnson went to Northern Ireland, told the people of Northern Ireland there will be no checks between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. There will be no checks in the Irish Sea. There will be no border in the Irish Sea. He said that if anyone asks you to fill out a document, tear it up. Put it in the bin. This was at the same time as his government were implementing the infrastructure to carry out checks. So Boris Johnson is a liar, and it needs to be called out. Unfortunately, Parliament has no teeth. Parliament is not able to hold Boris Johnson to account. Boris Johnson will not be held to account by the media because he has friends in high places. He has friends, but it's more about the party. It's about protecting the party. And the party will let him get away with it because they benefit from it. You know, the fact that he managed to win an 80-seat majority on the back of a lie, that's powerful stuff for the Conservative Party. But his ability to maintain support is starting to wane. And I think we're starting to see the end of Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. He will be eventually replaced. It could happen sooner rather than later, but we'll have to wait and see. But it's important that these things are called out. It's important that people do challenge him. It is important that he is called a liar, because that's what he is. The public need to realise that not all politicians are the same. We generally get this idea, and I think this is a huge problem when it comes to people like Boris Johnson, is they lie, they get away with it, they're not punished in Parliament, and the public perceive this as, well, if Boris Johnson is lying, then they're probably all lying. If Boris Johnson is lying and he's not being punished, it means, well, there is no punishment for lying, so everyone is probably at it. And this degrades democracy. It is damaging to the House of Commons, to Parliament, because politicians are supposed to be there to represent the public, but attempt to be truthful. Of course, many of them lie, but there's a difference between making a promise and not being able to fulfill it, and deliberately making a promise you know you will not fulfill. And Boris Johnson has a long history of this. He has lied his entire life, it seems. So it needs to be called out. And for that reason, Ian Blackford is our hero of the week. See you next time for our next Hero of the Week.